Hello and welcome back to the Thomas Eriksen podcast, episode 5. To those of you who do not know me, I am Thomas Eriksen and I am the creator of the Norwegian black metal band Mork. If you want to support the podcast and my ventures in general, please visit the Mork web shop and perhaps buy a t-shirt or 5 t-shirts or a vinyl or 10 vinyls. Everything is appreciated, and the web address is quite complicated for the ones who are not Norwegian. It's www.morkisebakke.no, but I will write it in the description below. Thanks a lot for that. As I do have a special guest yet again, my intro speech will be short because this will be a long one. I had the pleasure this weekend to have a visit from my very good friend Silenoz from Dimmu Borgir, and we had a chat about his origins and the story around Dimmu Borgir. And as I said, it's a long one. It's about between 1 and 2 hours, I think. So please be patient and listen through the whole thing. It's interesting stuff. So without any further ado, let's jump into it.
Meg selv.
Ja, men da har du egentlig ikke offisielt vært på radio, Sven.
Ja, jeg har det fra før, så jeg har jo opplevd det. Men
Nei, men det gjelder ikke. Så lenge ikke du har hørt stemmen din sånn som jeg gjør nå i hørelurene, så har du faen ikke vært på radio. Skål.
Skål.
Veldig kos. All right, we are sitting here. I have the pleasure and honor of having my very good friend in the studio. He has to be one of the best riff maestros, word smiths, dark poets, a real rock star, Mr. Silenoz from Dimmu Borgir.
Well, thank you. Thank you, brother.
I blew a lot of smoke up your ass now.
Yeah, you did. But, yeah. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. They are true words. So
I appreciate that. I
yeah.
really appreciate that.
You have given a lot of hours to the listeners out there who can concur.
Hopefully, yeah. That'll be nice.
And when we are in Halden, as you know from before, we have to have a Fernet Branca.
Yeah, I was suspecting that. Not my favorable drink, but, you know, for you, anything.
Thank you. All right. Here you have your Fernet Branca, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Skål. You can choose if you want to nip it or shot it.
Always shot this.
You will shot it?
Yeah.
I will do it too.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, that's good for the soul. You can feel it to the inner
Medicine.
black pit.
Black medicine.
That's true. I usually nip my Fernets on the side of the beer, but since it's you, I will take a shot.
I don't nip that much anything, really.
You don't?
No.
You're not nippy?
No, I swallow.
Don't spit. Oh, yeah. Let's be a bit to point here for the listeners out there.
Yeah.
We can just start at the beginning, and if you can tell me, where do you come from music-wise? You know, where did it start? I guess, like everyone, you are a young kid, you figure out you want to do this. What shot you up in this world?
I think it was a combination of different artists. I remember in the early 80s, the first thing I heard on the radio that caught my attention, I think, was Bob Marley. And then it was like Elvis, Bruce Springsteen, And then in '84, when MTV was getting big, it was Twisted Sister. And I think around that time, I just knew that this is what I'm supposed to do, So
was it the makeup or the riffs or
it was a combination of everything.
show business?
Yeah, it's like entertainment. I felt entertained at the age of 6, 7. And,
That's quite early, actually.
Yeah, I guess. My son is 7 now, and he is entertained in other ways, But for me, it was I just instantly knew, basically.
I started way later. I remember.
Oh, you were born later.
I was born. That's why. That's why my first album came so way later than yours. No, I remember from my childhood, my first musical memories has to be me dancing throughout the living room to George Harrison song, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my very first memories, and I remember Roxette.
Yeah,
with she's got the look and everything like that, But the calling came way later for me. It has to be when I was perhaps even close to the teens, actually 12, 13.
Right. But you have more like a musical background than I do, I think. Haven't you been taught how to play guitar? Because I haven't.
You don't have any musical bones in you? No, the thing is, my parents, I don't come from a musical family or background or anything, but my mother, she knows a couple of chords on the acoustic.
Right.
And my father played drums in his teens.
Okay. Yeah.
And my my grandfather, he played the violin, I think, but I never met him. And my uncle has played the electric guitar in the 80s. But that has never rubbed off on me.
Right.
I kind of discovered it on my own through the cool kids in the schoolyard. Because when I was, 12, 13, it was like the mid to late 90s, because I'm a bit younger than you.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but the cool thing back then was to go just outside the school property and smoke and listen to punk rock.
Right.
And that's, everything from 80s punk rock to 90s punk rock to 70s punk rock. And what really captured me was the Sex Pistols, and the British stuff.
I think pretty much everybody has a relation to Sex Pistols,
Even you do?
Yeah, absolutely. In the late 80s, I was doing skateboarding. And we listened to the old school punk stuff, Sex Pistols, Ramones, Exploited.
Excellent stuff.
Stuff like that, the really good old stuff. And I still like that now,
I remember when I came home with the Sex Pistols tapes and CDs and whatnot, my father was like, it's only about rebellion and it's noise. But I was like, no, Dad, it's not, because this is really kick-ass rock and roll.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah, it is.
Because if you listen to the rhythm section and the guitarist there, Paul Cook and Steve Jones, that's some killer original rock and roll stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really
and with
important.
an unfiltered frontman. That
Absolutely.
combo is always volatile, but
Yeah.
it usually works for the better.
And have you noticed that guy hasn't changed ever since then? Now he's in his, I don't know, maybe close to mid-60s. He's the same guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck
It's honesty.
about anyone.
You don't put on a play for anybody.
No.
And that's how it's supposed to be.
It's really impressive to see that, because most people grow out of stuff, or it's just a face,
But
or
like
it's an
Lemmy
image.
said, then you've never been into the stuff in the first place.
You've been into the stuff to sell the stuff, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
So, but I guess you decided to play an instrument and decided on forming some sort of a group.
Yeah, the first group I was part of forming, we didn't even play instruments. I think that's also something that goes for a lot of kids.
I've been there. Been
you
there.
know, because you want to be a gang, you want to be a, you know, a group, feeling, something that you have in common with friends,
Yes.
and so that's how it started. I think it was in probably 86, 87 or something.
You're so fucking old.
Elementary school. So, and we actually had plans to get instruments, but we couldn't really agree on who was going to play what, you know.
Ah.
So
What's your role? What's my role?
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know. But that was fun times because it gives you a taste of that. Okay, I think we were 4 kids, and we were like, yeah, we felt something special. We were bonding through the music, and so that's something that always kept me wanting to be in a band or a group or a club,
In
or
that collective.
you know, that connection. Yeah, for sure.
It's the best feeling in the world.
I think so. To have something that you create with others, whether it's music or whatever it is, you know, to share something, it's incredible.
Not to go really deep or be philosophical, but you can see that, you know, the metal and black metal and whatever, it unites globally. You know, it doesn't matter if you're from Iran or Serbia or South America or Finland, you know.
No.
The people who like this music, they come together, and most, I would say 99% of the time, you get along.
Yeah.
So it's a really big thing.
But that's how music connects people, and it's the same with punk. You know, you can. It's all over the world, and it doesn't really matter what genre it is. You know, I'm sure classical has the same effect on people.
Down with establishment.
Yeah, imagine Wagner back in the day. You know,
Yeah.
he was. I just picture him as quite a rebel. You know, Beethoven too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
So
Which one of those did actually rock the rafters of the concert hall? Isn't there a story about this? That there were, I think some of them perhaps used, you know, have you ever seen an octobass? You know what that is?
No.
An octobass is it's a
You're
stand.
asking very difficult questions now.
I know. I'm getting cryptic. I thought you liked this stuff, you know.
Sure, but on my terms.
you wanted to go Joe Rogan on this thing. Little salute to Joe Rogan there.
Yeah.
No, just to finish my point, that it's not a point, it's just a fact, it's some trivia. An octobass is a regular stand-up bass,
Right.
but it's for 2 people. So it's huge.
Right. So
it's
4 hands.
taller than the ceiling here, and one guy is maneuvering the strings, and another one is standing on a staircase and maneuvering the chords. And I think one of these Bach or one of these Wagner fellers used that, and it
Right.
rocked the.
Yeah, got to look into that because that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
it's acoustics, you know. It's
Yeah.
no mic'd up amps or anything, and that's
Not back then, as far as I know.
No, perhaps they had Marshalls and Messas. I'm not sure. Early versions.
Yeah. Product placements.
That's true.
Stuff.
Maybe they had beep and boop back there. Okay, but back to when you formed a real band. What was the first venture for you?
Well, being part of my first real band was actually by coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, but at least not now when I'm age 43. But that was back in 1990 or 91. It was the summer of 91 because I got a phone call being asked if we need someone to play bass on a couple of songs. We have a show coming up and just a school party, you know, like backyard party or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but I don't even have a bass. Yeah, but we have a bass for you here. We'll teach you, you know.
Yeah.
So the first song I ended up learning was Johnny Be Good, I think. So you just play the strings, you know, first of all.
Classic.
Yeah. And then it was Living After Midnight and Enter Sandman, because Enter Sandman had came out as a single.
Yeah.
during that summer. Because this was late summer.
I think some people have heard about that song.
Yeah.
That album did okay.
Did pretty well. Does pretty well still.
That's true.
So yeah, those were my 3 first real songs that I had to learn, I guess.
On bass.
On bass, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was an old Fender bass with strings still from the 70s. The strings hadn't been changed since the 70s.
But did that give own vibe, or did it just sound like shit?
It's hard to say how it sounded, but because I didn't have anything to compare it with, obviously.
That's true. It's so early on.
For me, it was just about trying to learn where the strings were, and I got like
the finger placements.
Yeah, stuff like that. So this string does this and this and this, and I'm like, okay.
But did they listen to you? Did the strings listen to you?
After a while, they started picking up. So no, that was really a fun way of getting into music as a player.
Yeah.
And after we played a few shows with that band, and I was on the bass, and then after a while I wanted to get like a guitar, because I felt like I want to create my own stuff too.
Yeah.
So I got an old I think it was a Hondo guitar or whatever, like
Honda guitar.
Hondo or something like that.
Let me guess, a Strat.
Strat looking guitar. It was black though. So,
I had a Summit Strat.
Right.
That was my first guitar.
So I think a lot of people start because that's the guitar, either that or a Les Paul shaped type of guitar, because that's what you've seen on TV and stuff. So I got hold of that and a small combo amp, and then suddenly I had 2 more strings to take care of, and it was thinner, and it was like already back then I remember that it kind of felt like spaghetti, going from those thick strings that I had on the Fender bass, then just like starting playing around with the strings and what they gave me back, that's how some of the earliest Dimmu stuff started.
That early on.
Yeah.
With while you were actually
moving from bass to
learning the
moving
instrument.
from bass to guitar, basically. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing, actually, because Dimmu is obviously black metal, and it's a really
not to everybody.
No, but I don't give.
Which is fine.
I don't give a shit.
That's fine.
Because it's music.
Yeah.
And what moves you is what moves you.
Yeah.
And the black metal, I need to make a point out of this, because black metal is not a narrow path. It's a really wide highway with plenty of ways of articulating what you want in darkness.
Yeah.
So
that was a good way of putting it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice one.
So where were we now?
Narrow path.
Narrow path. Before that,
Open. Wide.
bit further. No, the thing is that how did you're telling me that you started off the Dimmu roots is planted while you were picking up the guitar. But how did you get into the darkness on that path?
This is the thing. There was like a gap here where I was still doing the bass, and we continued the band that I was asked to play bass in, and we continued that more towards the death metal oriented type of band, playing covers, and that was like a huge learning curve for me.
So you went basically from Chuck Berry to Morbid Angel.
Chuck Berry more to death.
Death.
Yeah.
Chuck Death.
Yeah. Good link there.
That's a jump.
That's quite a jump. But so that was like we played mostly covers at first. I think we had a couple of songs that we were working on our own, really simple stuff, more simple than the covers we played actually.
Yeah.
And we played some youth halls and some school, and
let me guess, UKM.
Yes.
Ungdommens kulturmønstring for the
yeah.
Norwegians out there.
Yeah. So stuff like that, and this was helping me getting into more the darker stuff as a player.
Yeah.
But before this, at the end of the 80s, beginning of 90s, I was already getting into more of the extreme stuff, like Death. When I first heard Death Leprosy, because I heard that album before Scream Bloody Gore.
Yeah.
I remember that I ordered that tape from Sweden, and I got it a couple of months after it was released, and I didn't like it because...
Stupid question. Was that in 87?
88. Late 88, yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember I ordered Death Leprosy on tape and the New Order with Testament on tape, because I was already a Testament fan. So that was, of course, fine, but when I put the Death one on, I hadn't heard it before, so I bought it strictly because of the cover and the logo.
Yeah, the cover art.
Yeah,
yep.
And the logo, of course.
Good old days.
So that was like quite a shock for me, and I remember I couldn't listen to it right away. I just heard the first song and fucking, it's too much screaming, or stuff like that.
Yep.
But remember, this was late 88, and I was 11.
Yep.
Turning 12. So, but that's how I got into the darker side of music.
Okay.
I suppose, yeah.
So death metal was the first thing, and thrash metal.
Yeah, thrash metal first, yeah.
But how did this thing get evolved into being what would become Dimmu Borgir?
Well, doing the death metal stuff, and we did quite a few shows with that.
So it was a death metal band?
Death metal band first, that had nothing to do with Dimmu at first. So we played a few local shows, and I remember I think it must have been the last show I did with my former band Malefic, which we ended up calling it in '92. That's when I met Shagrat for the first time at the local show, where I actually helped put on with the drummer from Testimony, which is Blasphemers first.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Cool connection.
Yeah. So we did that show together, and that's when I met Shagrat for the first time. We were both young and drunk and stuff, and we didn't really get to hook up before in '93 when we started college together at the same school.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Videregående skole?
Yes.
Eller ungdomsskole? Yeah.
Cool. So that's when things started to move a bit more rapidly, I guess. And we started, there was a few of us that were dressing the same, bullet bells, leather jackets, long hair, black hair.
Venom shirt.
Yeah. So, that's how we're like, you look the same as me. What are you listening to? I remember meeting you last year. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's how. So that's how it really came together. And we managed to get hold of rehearsal place locally, at Jessheim, actually.
Because he's from Jessheim and you're from Nannestad.
Yeah.
But did he come from bands previously?
Yeah, he had Fimbulwinter previously before, and I guess they were ending that summer.
Yeah.
So when he moved back to Jessheim, so yeah, that's how things started to move, and that was quite a weird time because you go to college the first year and you have no idea what you want to become as a grown-up, and what you want to do. So
I was way lost back then.
Yeah, me too. I'm still lost, but it's more.
Me too.
Yeah.
We're so sad.
Sad fuckers.
Cheers.
Cheers for that.
But we need to. We should step into the Dimmu era then, and just tell me, how did it happen? The thing I've been wondering the couple of days before you came is that you were the first guys to incorporate the symphonic and more the synth and the more wider soundscape You are the earliest ones, right?
I guess you can consider us as one of the earliest ones to take it further because you have to remember in 1992, 1993, there was a lot of stuff happening in the underground, especially in Norway.
Yeah.
You had Enslaved, which was quite a young band, Emperor, which was quite a young band, and they were both using keyboards, at least Emperor after with the Mini CD.
Bursen
yeah, and
did
Bursen
keyboards.
too.
Yeah.
So that was not something new, and
but your soundscape was fuller.
Yeah, because I think we used keyboard more as a writing tool.
Yeah. Okay.
And
there
not
you go.
only just like, oh, let's put some atmosphere and add-ons here.
Yep.
It was more like, okay,
it's not a single note pattern.
No. So I think that separates us a little bit from the other bands.
But how did it? Why? Why did it happen like this?
You don't think too much when you're young, do you?
No,
so
no.
And I think that's partly why we just felt like, oh, this is comfortable. This is something that we feel comfortable doing at this without analyzing too much, which is important in the beginning of.
So it's coincidences.
In hindsight, I don't think it's coincidence, but
No.
at that time, in that age, and how young we were, it was just like, yeah, let's go with that because that sounds cool. And in the beginning, of course, most of it was guitar-driven, but then later on, like maybe already on the Stormblast album, it was already we were already making music with keyboards, you know.
Yeah.
So
you started the song process by the keyboard.
Sometimes, already that early. So and I don't think that many other bands coming from that genre did the same, you know, because it was like totally. No, that's definitely not the way to do it.
I don't think they even thought about it, to be honestly, because most people just pick up the guitar and write a song.
Yeah.
So it's original.
I would think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that we have utilized that instrument just like someone use clarinet in classical, like when that was something new to add to a classical orchestra, whatever, you know. I would like to think that without sounding too cocky.
No, not at all. Not at all. The products speak for themselves.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, they do.
There's quite a lot of fans over the years that has
occurred.
Acknowledging that fact, so that's cool. Yeah.
But how did it? I'm not going to speak about it blowing up yet. But how did you get into the business? Because it's a business. You can't get away from that. But you got signed. You made some demos.
You know, the first album was basically it wasn't meant as the first album because we sent out a few of what we were intending to be a demo recording to send out later. But I think first of all there was a small label in Holland that got hold of some of the first songs we did, and they want to release it as a 7-inch, Necromantic Gallery.
The album tracks, recordings.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was we were like, okay, they want to do a 7-inch like the old school way, like we press 1,000, you get 300, and you can do whatever the fuck you want with it.
Yep.
You know? So we were like, okay, fuck. Yeah, we were young and ready to, let's do it, you know? Didn't think too much about it, so contracts back then was like 1 page, 2 page at the most, and signed it, whatever. But, you know, to this day, that record company kind of kept their deal, and we did whatever we wanted with our part of it. So, so that was, and then other smaller underground labels caught up on that, and we want to hear more, blah blah. So we started sending out stuff because tape trading was still a big thing back then, you know.
This is 93, 94?
94, yeah.
Mm. Just a question. Do you have any of those copies from that first 7-inch?
Yes, I have my own.
You have one?
Yeah, I have one.
I need to steal that the next time I'm at your house.
I remember Shodal, our drummer, which was playing guitar at the time. He kept quite a few of them. So I remember, I guess it's like 10, 15 years ago now. He was like, "Oh, I found this
Stack
bag,
of
this stash with like fucking the 7-inch."
they go
so
on
like,
Discogs for like ridiculous money now. I can imagine.
So that was pretty fun.
But it's so cool that it's a beginning. Everything has a beginning.
Yeah.
You know,
very tiny. You know, you don't really have a focus, and I think that's the charm of it, because it's like if you predetermine whatever you're going to do, that's, in my eyes, that's doomed to fail, basically, you know. And that's what later years, when business comes into it, a lot of other stuff, there's a lot of other stuff you have to focus on, and it has a domino effect on whatever you do. But in the beginning, there's just like full on
creativity,
and no
spirit.
You don't think consequences whatsoever, you know.
But the next step was you awoken larger labels, I guess, or different labels.
Yeah, the thing happened basically after we did the Stormblast album. We did the Devil's Path mini CD, paid for everything ourselves, and we sent that to several labels. We sent it to Nuclear Blast, which the owner, the boss, he totally loved it.
Is the same guy today?
Yeah, until last year, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, he was, once he heard it, he was like, "Oh, I want this band," you know. And he had already Stormblast in his distribution net, as far as I remember. And so that's 96 when Devil's Path came out. We got the offer from Nuclear Blast, and we signed. And what you say in Norwegian, you were as green as the album cover. You just signed the contract and like hope for the best.
Yep.
So that had a business-wise, it had a domino effect that we had to like kind of.
That took years, I guess.
Took years to salvage that.
Yeah.
But we got the Enthroned and Darkness Triumphant album out in 97. We recorded it in 96. 96, 97.
That was when it blew up.
That's when things hit the fan.
Yeah, and that was like the third album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The third full-length album. Yeah.
Morning Palace. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing too is that when we, because we were fans of Hypocrisy, Dark Funeral, Secrets of the Black Arts album, you know, the sound and stuff.
Cool albums.
So yeah, really good albums. And so we contacted Peter in Sweden, Peter Tektren.
Oh yeah.
And you know, because Nuclear wanted us to go to a studio where there was like proper sound, you know. They liked Stormblast, they liked the first album, they liked Devil's Path, but they were like lo-fi sounding albums, you know.
Yep.
Everything recorded in Norway at the time. So they wanted to go with someone that they knew, and they knew Peter and Hypocrisy because they already released Abducted on Nuclear Blast. So we were like, okay, let's try this, you know. Let's go to Sweden and record the first album from Nuclear Blast. And I remember when we sent Peter the first albums, you know, the two first and Devil's Path, he was like, I remember specifically, he told me like, dude, when you sent me Stormblast, dude, I was like petrified. Am I gonna record this fucking bad sounding band from Norway? No fucking way. But you know, he got a different view on it later, but
he kind of became your Maury sound then.
Basically, yeah, I guess you can say, yeah. Which is which helped form the I guess you cannot really say the early sound of the band, but the sound that
became the
that we
main statement,
really started working further with, you know. So that's when things really started to happening.
That's awesome. But I guess you started off touring right off the go, right? From the first album on?
Not really. We up until we recorded Enthroned Darkness Triumphant in 96, late 96, early 97, we had only played 2 shows.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of traditional black metal way of doing things, isn't it?
I guess
It's
so,
totally
yeah.
different now
Yeah.
because all the bands are playing their asses off everywhere from the start.
No, I think back then it was that was pretty much more the norm than it is now.
Yeah.
You know, you had Emperor doing the UK tour in '93.
Yep.
Mayhem did a few shows, handful of shows here and there.
Dark Throne did like some kulturmønstrings, as we
Yes.
talked about. They did a Finnish short run, and I think they perhaps played a gig at Rockefeller in '96, and that's it.
Yeah, because I think back then it was like you were just happy and lucky to get a show. You were not really promoting the band like we do now, you know, like you do, for instance.
I try.
So, or the way you started out, because you were like, yeah, well, let's try and get a show here.
All in.
You know, back then it was more like laid back. I would say typically Norwegian.
Yeah.
Sorry that we're here, kind of thing.
Don't mind me.
That's just my opinion, of course. But no one was really die hard on let's play shows, let's play a lot of shows, let's put tours together.
Yeah.
But we had plans of doing several shows in '95, '96. I remember that we had some promoters in Germany, Holland, Belgium, and stuff like that. I was interested in bringing the band there, but it was with still with letter form, and things took so much time. So
yeah.
Our first show ended up being in the field, so East Germany in '95.
That's the first show?
First show in August '95.
So not in Norway?
Not in Norway, no.
Then we did the same thing. Mork's first show ever was in Poland.
All right.
We debuted on stage in Olsztyn.
Right.
It was a one-day festival in memory of some band members from Decapitated, and I think Vader. Don't arrest me now, please. But they had passed a couple of years ago, and this was like a annual celebration of those guys.
Right.
So we appeared there actually.
Okay. Cool.
So it was kind of a cool feeling for me, at least, to get to debut in another country.
Yeah.
It feels a bit more special.
But you flew there with an airplane, right?
We did.
Yeah. We took the train.
Oh man, with the equipment and everything.
Equipment, everything.
That's
But we had, I remember we had a couple of friends with us. Galder being one of them, actually.
Oh, really?
He was, yeah, because he had his own band at the time.
Was that Old Man's Child? Or was
Yeah. But he was just tagging along to have a good time and stuff. And
you've been buddies from the start, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And I remember we traveled with Vebuens Ende because they were playing the same festival.
They're back now, so
yeah.
Is the light bothering you, by the way?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. It's not religious or anything.
Hvis lyset tar oss.
Yeah, so that first festival was in the fields of East Germany somewhere, and I remember that it was no sound check, of course, and we have rehearsed
Line
for
check.
several days, and we were one of the later bands on the bill. Dark Funeral was playing, Vebuens Ende, In the Woods were playing.
Oh yeah.
Disaster. Who else? Yeah, there was a couple more. So it was a really old school bill in a way. We were kind of like the newcomers, I guess you can say. So, that was a weird feeling. I remember I was really fucking nervous. I think we all were.
Is there footage from this?
Yeah, it's on YouTube now.
Really?
It's both. I think it's both in color and black and white. But yeah.
What was the festival called?
I think that I can't remember what the festival was called. It was just it was in the what do you call it, like far away out in the countryside in East Germany.
Yeah.
And,
A kind of DIY thing?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
But I think that what turned in later to be Under the Black Sun
Okay.
or some of the same people.
Cool.
So
How did I have to ask? How did the gig go? You know, how was it?
it went all right, I suppose, considering the circumstances. You know, we were helping out each other. All the bands on stage, we were like, okay, so now it's your turn.
Changeover.
Yeah, we were like teching for each other in a way. You know,
Awesome. That's
plus
a collective.
in between putting the makeups on and stuff like that. But I remember when we got there was like hardly anything to do. A lot of waiting around, of course. First show, so you don't really know how to behave, basically. So some of us starts drinking, you know, and you know, having a good time.
As you do.
I didn't actually, but I remember. I think it was Shudo. He wasn't drunk or anything, but when it got close to when we were gonna go on stage, he was like missing. So it's like, where the fuck is he? You know, he got to get his makeup on and get ready and stuff. And we couldn't really find him until it was like almost intro time, you know, on stage. So he's playing the show without makeup.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know, trivia like that. That's
Cool. Nice tidbit.
Yeah.
Spinal Tap.
Pretty much.
But I guess when the third album got released and then things kind of exploded, did you ever get any sense of why it exploded? What took off?
I think it was a lot of factors, actually.
Was there, for example, were there a single released? Was the Morning Palace a single?
Morning Palace was the first song of the album being on compilations, CDs,
Compilations.
promos back in the day.
Okay.
Because they were sent to radio stations and TV stations and all that stuff.
And some magazines, I guess.
Magazines, all the magazines got that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was, and I remember there was several of those promo CDs for different magazines, whatever, and our song was the first one on many of them. Or this was compilation promos, and our song was the first one on many of them.
That's a lucky break.
So maybe that's like has something to do with which you don't really think about until you know later on. And
but it's a good song. It's a really good song.
It's a catchy song.
Yeah,
it's a good song.
On those compilations, good songs tend to end up at the beginning.
Yeah, plus the sound too.
Yeah.
I think it's that was like the production on that album is. I know that people or studio people still use that as a reference. You
Really?
know? Yeah.
Awesome. It's black metal's Dark Side of the Moon.
That's a. Thank you, but I don't agree. But I think that really set the standard for certain things, production-wise, and because if you think, well, I'm biased obviously because I've been part of making the songs, but there's certain musical parts from the Stormblast era that didn't get on the Stormblast album, which we kept and developed for the Throne album. Night Masquerade is a song like that, and if you take away the production values from Enthroned Darkness Triumphant and put that into the original Stormblast album as just picture yourself that that song could very well be on that album.
Of course.
So the gap between Stormblast and Enthroned is not musically really that big. I mean, there is difference, obviously.
It's evolution,
but it's more as in production values instead of the writing of the music.
Yep.
So that's a lot of people don't really think about that because there's such a huge difference in the sound.
I kind of see it from the outside and the people.
Because if you now listen to
debating over this,
if you listen to the re-recording of Stormblast, then you can go back and I'm like, oh yeah, it's not that big difference really.
Personally, I'm a big fan of the reissue or the re-recording.
Yeah,
I love that album. Listened it to pieces basically.
Cool.
So, but I see all those people out there who try to take black metal in, and they think they own black metal. And they can put judgment upon you and stuff like that because of this and that. I think it's complete bullshit.
To me, it's quite a paradox because black metal to me is about individuality as a band and as persons.
If you start to copy albums because they are cool, you are a fake.
then you don't have your own vision.
No.
And
It's okay to do it as a path leading somewhere. You know, everyone has to start somewhere. And,
Sure.
you know, if you listen to Dark Throne, you end up sounding like Dark Throne, and then you will
Yeah.
hopefully evolve.
Yeah.
So that's my.
Although
5
you
cents.
also have this old school approach, but you have your own identity.
I would like to say so now. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And you take inspiration from the old school albums and the sound also, specifically, I guess.
Yeah.
But you have your own identity. And imagine all those bands that came out in the 90s that just wanted to sound like their favorite band.
Yes.
You know, my favorite bands are Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and stuff like that. But, you know, I tried to use that as a channeling tool to make my own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And the same with the old school black metal albums and death metal too. You know, it's like, yeah, of course, something sinks into the back of your head, and before you know it, you have like, oh, that sounds a bit too close to that part of that song from another band.
Yeah.
But it's not done on purpose. The difference is that it's not done on purpose. So
Yes.
you have used it as a inspiration.
You're not
tool.
a copycat.
Exactly.
So I have come to the point now. I am actually mixing my 5th album now
Right.
these days, and I don't care anymore about what people expect or any outside kind of views on how the outcome should be or would be. I make the songs as I feel them.
As you feel them, that's the perfect way to say it. Because if you make songs on demand, or if the record label or someone else expects this and this from you, then it's not yours. It's not your own. You have to make them on the go as you feel, you know. And that's.
But the paradox you're talking about is when we bring the business into it.
Yeah.
Labels and everything and fans, because
Basically more people into it.
yes,
you know?
more people.
More people.
Basically, because it needs to push units, move units.
Sure.
It's a business,
Yeah.
and of course people are
And a contract says that there's 2 parties that are expecting something from that agreement.
Yep.
And if the band is not like we were in the early days, that you don't really have any expectation except for, we just want our albums out. You gladly sign the stuff and we're gonna get it out, you know, to people. Yes. But maybe the album or the label has other expectations because they have been a label from the beginning.
And they are not living inside your head.
Exactly. So there's so many factors to consider when stuff like that really takes off. And for instance, in I think it was on it must have been on one of the first tours for Enthroned. Some representative from the record label came and picked up plastic bags full of cash from merch sales. So we were like thinking, oh, wow, we have sold this and this much merch, right? And they were like, no, this goes back to the label. What do you mean?
So they had 360 deals back then too.
Yeah.
That's,
so that was the first step of us changing the things, you know, with the label that, you know, for the band to actually survive on this level that the label expect, we need to have some type of cash flow. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Yeah. Especially being a young band in Norway without a job, you know. So, it's not rocket science, and we managed to get a management that took care of most of that stuff, and we started, you know, earning money on the music, which was kind of weird. Even in small amounts, it was still weird to earn money on what you feel you're supposed to do, you know.
Music pays the way for your living. It's the dream of everyone, you know. And
because you don't look at it. I at least don't look at it still as work. No. Work is something you have to do because you have survive. Because you have to, you know. So
It's awesome, you know. And today, you know, not to segue into anything different, but you know, with the Spotify's and YouTubes and internet in general, and you know, things are just tipped on the head. You know, you have to be like, I don't know, Justin Bieber to make a real living, and you know,
except for don't slip on stage on water. You know, that's
he didn't slip because he saw the water. And he just didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
There's water touching the stage.
Yep.
I'm out of here. If we reach that point, you can gladly shoot us in the head. It's okay. But you know, there's along with the internet, it comes a million bands, and everyone wants to be true, and everyone wants to be the real deal and want to make it.
Everyone is an expert behind the keyboard, right?
Yep. Trolls.
But do they have only black keys on the keyboard? That's the question.
I can actually, through some commentary portions of some YouTube videos, I can see the pink buttons actually.
Yeah.
The small pink buttons. Next album, Spiritual Black Dimensions.
Yeah.
Which is even further into your comfort zone than what would become the Dimmu sound and way of doing things.
Yeah, because at this point we've already been able to tour a little bit. You know, our first main big tour after Entron was actually supporting Creator in '97. So, and then of course we played in quite a few festivals that summer. The same happened in the summer of '98. Did quite a few festivals in Europe. And then, just take that pretty quick. Before Spiritual Black Dimensions, we released Godless Savage Garden, which was more like a mini CD at the time, like to fill the gap or whatever. But I think once we were writing for the Spiritual album, we had some member changes, of course, that helps to change things around automatically, both in a creative way and also in the personal and the private way. So everything adds to the changes, and it's impossible to get around certain changes.
Of course.
But I think we took our expression further and more into, for the lack of a better word, more of a symphonic type of thing.
That's fair.
Because it's with music, as you know, it's extremely hard to pinpoint or label it. And the older you get, I don't know, for me, it's like the older I get, the less I care about labels on stuff. Because if it gives me something, it gives me something. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
A good song is a good song.
Yes. No matter what type of music it is.
Yep.
So, but at this point, this was '98 that we were writing for the Spiritual album. And I remember also at that time, we were like trying to go in more into the thought process behind making the songs. We were more conscious about how we were writing the songs.
Yeah. It's not happy-go-lucky.
No,
you know.
It's not like in the beginning or like even on that Tron album, it's like, oh, do you have a riff? Oh, yeah. What about this? Yeah, do you have a riff? And then it was more like that. But this time it was, let's do it.
Thought out.
Yeah. And that's also why we had Peter Techtren coming over to Norway.
Yeah.
So he was supposed to like get to know the songs and what we were thinking and stuff like that. But it all ended up in a drunken thing, you know. So there was not really much producing going on at that point.
But creativity was blooming.
It was, yeah. So once we got back to Peter at that in the same studio, in his studio.
But just to break you off a little bit.
Yeah.
Cut you off is the correct English.
Cut.
This was the time where Vortex came into the picture, right? He did
that's true.
Guest appearance on that
album? Guest
appearance,
because we intended to have someone else do
clean vocals,
yes. Eerie vocals on some parts.
Because this was the first time
yes.
with the clean stuff.
or if you don't count the first album with Ultron doing semi-clean vocals.
No offense, but I don't count that as the same thing.
I don't count that as clean vocals.
No,
No offense to
no
Ultron.
offense. No. Credit.
But yeah, this was the first time we intended to have someone else outside the band to come in and do a guest appearance, I guess you can say.
Add a flavor.
Yes. But that didn't really happen, and we were still, while we were doing the vocals in the studios, like, we still need something special or something particular on this and this part. And we knew Vortex since when he was in Webun's Ende in that first show in '95.
Was he in that band?
Yeah, he was there.
I did not know that.
So we're like, well, we know him. Why don't we try and contact him and see if he can come on a short notice?
But did he sing clean vocals back then too, in that band?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
It's been his thing all along then.
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Cool. But now we only had like really short notice. We're like 4.5 hours, 5 hours into Swedish territory.
Yeah.
So but he turned up from one day to the other. No preparation really. Here's the lyrics.
Wow.
Let's see what you can do with it. And I think that's the part of the album I think that we went back to, kind of like the beginning, that you just do something and see what comes out of it. While a lot of the rest of the album is consciously thought through.
So that was
written.
a spontaneous.
That was more
part.
of a spontaneous thing because that was meant for someone else to sing,
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So that was kind of like a blessing in disguise, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I would say so because way before I knew you, and I remember getting into the Dimmu albums, and that was aspect I really got into, his clean vocals, and that really gave it a lift,
Yeah, it takes or it gives actually some spice and
Absolutely.
something unexpectedness to it. And I guess in hindsight, you can say that at that time we needed something, a new element, although we had new members in the band already, but I guess we were like, the original plan doesn't work, so what do we do? And then we all like sitting there trying to figure out what the fuck are we going to do.
It's genius because melody doesn't take away anything from the blackness or darkness.
No,
it
only
adds to it.
Adds, yeah.
That's the way
I see it.
That's the way I work too.
Yeah, me too.
Since actually I don't know if the Mork listeners out there has even noticed this, but there are clean vocals even on the first album.
Yeah.
So I come from a music background. I'm not just only into A Blaze in a Northern Sky. I need that little element beneath the binaural thing. The melody is the thing that gives you the vibe and the feeling and atmosphere.
If you go really back to basics, it's like if it's not melody, it's kind of not music. Then it's just considered noise. And as soon as you pick up the guitar and you play a riff, that's already melody.
It is a melody
from the get go.
Yeah, it's a quint. It's a fifth.
Yeah,
It's a combination of notes, people.
Yes.
So it's not that necro. It's important for sure. And next album coming up is I always get the title wrong. It's Misanthropic
Something
Puritanical Euphoria.
like that. Yeah.
Right?
Puritanical, euphoric, misanthropic.
Is it really?
It's a tongue twister.
I'm so sorry about that.
But that's why we always refer to it as PEM.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we should refer to it as PMS, but that's another story.
That is actually my first go-to album. That was the one I got into first.
Cool.
Yeah, that hit me hard.
All right, nice.
That was when I was on the learning curve going into black metal.
Yeah.
I think that was the first real album I really got into in a whole.
Okay, cool.
As a whole album, I got into that. And, with the clean parts and the melody parts and everything. But there's a harshness there too. That's brilliant. Blessings upon the throne of tyranny.
Yeah.
Hats off.
You taught me how to play the other way on the lead.
Yeah, this is a funny one. I remember some years back, we just gotten to know each other, and Sven included me on this chat video or conference or whatever, and he was showing off the riffs to this intro to the song, and I was like, dude, you're doing it in a really
More difficult than it has to be,
way, man. And I kind of showed him how to do it a bit more easy. So hopefully,
but that's you know what? That goes back to when I was playing bass, and
Yeah.
since I'm self-taught, that's like, oh, it's easier for me to play on the actual fretboard than on, you know.
And another thing
Doing the
about
strings.
it's funny you should say this about the bass, because I remember I was in the studio another time with another band, and we were talking about putting on bass. And as you know, it's usually 4 strings, and I can't remember if it was me or someone else playing bass, but he was playing all the strings from bottom to the top, you know. And the producer was like, "Stop! You shouldn't do that. You should try to focus on the 2 heaviest strings, because they produce the most bass frequencies."
Yes.
So perhaps you're...
Unless you're a funk bass player, that's how we still do it in the studio.
Yeah.
If we can, we focus on the lower strings, because that's, as you say, that gives the most.
That's the frequency.
meat
It's
and
the frequency.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, that's bass. You know.
Yep.
Sometimes you have no choice but to go up to the 3rd and the 4th string, but you know, if you can avoid it, please do, because it just makes sense. It's a bass.
When I record Mork riffs, my people who listen to Mork know that the bass is its own instrument and lives its own life. I usually use the 2 top strings.
Yeah. We also have to mention, since we both play bass when we record ideas and stuff, that bass is a very underrated instrument.
Are you saying that the bass is the bass?
But it is one. But I guess we don't really think about it until we get to the studio part of recording the ideas, because that's when you feel, oh shit, maybe we should do it like this instead. And
there's an argument going on inside me on where to play it on the octave.
Sure.
And the low one.
Yeah.
Because both is correct.
Both is correct.
But
both might sound killer too.
Yep.
So you're faced with the choice that, and then me personally, I would probably end up doing half and half. You know.
I do so.
Yeah.
Because just before a climax, for example, I will pull it
Right.
on the 12th. You know. This is nerd talk.
12.
Skål.
Cool.
So tell me a little bit about... we can't jump over Death Cult because it's an important album.
Yeah.
Tell me about the surroundings around that area, that era of the
Very
band.
tumultuous. Is that the right word?
It was the peak,
chaotic,
and also the downfall in some ways, right?
It was just a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
You know, chaos usually means that something great comes out, which it did. But it also, behind the scenes, it was because we were touring quite a lot, and it's when you are on tour for longer periods of time, that's when you really get to know each other.
Yep.
That's how it was back in the days, back in the 80s, 70s, when bands were touring nonstop, playing shows nonstop. And you get to know yourself pretty well.
What do the 80s bands usually put it? They say that you're basically sleeping together without sleeping together.
Yeah.
You really get beneath the skin of each other.
Yeah. And you get to smell what's under each other's skin.
You see the real in the person.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. For the good and the bad, you know, which is for all of us is hard to grasp when it happens, because you have a show to do.
Of course.
And there's no safety net.
No.
And we all have our baggage. We all have our, our own bag to carry.
Your people,
Yeah.
of course.
So I think if you put aside the music and the creativity behind the music, the other stuff is human. It's like, as you say, we all do mistakes. We all act like cunts. Beep. Sometimes.
Of course.
And no one is better or worse than the other, really. So
Even playing field.
yeah, but you're trying to make the best out of it, and you come to the point where you have to make a choice, just for the record, personally, and I think I can speak for the whole band as well. We're these days we're on speaking terms with all previous members. But it wasn't like that all the time, for obvious reasons, without going into details.
It's basically like breaking up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You don't necessarily want to hang out or...
Right, yeah, I guess you can say that. But you also, at the same time, you can see what that person has done for
the evolution,
evolution of the band, and you appreciate that fact.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that it's going to work like that in the future. So you have to, being in a band, I always come back to this with Gene and Paul in Kiss.
Yeah.
If we are honest with each other, everybody, would Kiss be Ace and Peter without Paul and Gene? Not taking anything away from Ace and Peter.
No.
But would it be the same today? And I think we all know the answer to that.
And as we know, Paul and Gene has had a turbulent relationship across the years, So, but it's the unit, it's the factor, the X factor that makes the wonderful part of the music.
And as sad as it is to part ways with people on a creative front and a personal private front, you will always come to a point where you're faced with a decision to make, and sometimes in bands the decisions are not always easy, but to save something, you are going to do whatever you have to do, and that's the difficult part of being in a group, in a band, and that's something that no one thinks about when they start a small band in playing with each other, just jamming and stuff like that.
For fun.
For fun, because we all do that. That's how the basics are done when you're in the band. But when all these other factors comes into it, and you add on top of personal struggles, turmoil, and you're together 24/7, there's bound to be stuff that's gonna affect the whole situation, and like we now for the last, I would say 15, 20 years even. When Dimmu is on tour, we are minimum 12 to 14 people, including crew. So you can just imagine what can happen. And there's, as I said, there's no safety net. You have a show to do, and if you're sick or if you're hungover or whatever, there is no excuse. You have to be on that stage.
Yes, it's business. The machinery must go on.
Yes, and we're all guilty of doing things wrong. I'm gonna be the first one to say that. So, yeah, it's not always easy, and. But I think that's how we all grow as artists, because first and foremost, we are individual artists and persons within the group of people.
Yes.
We're not the group of people and then individuals. It's the other way around. So, yeah, it's a jungle out there.
It is, but it's so true. And, people should recognize that, I guess.
Yeah, but it's from the outside, it's hard to do that, because...
You see the poster on the wall, with the cool band.
Exactly, and imagine when, I don't know if you've been into sports or soccer or football or hockey or whatever, you see your favorite team, and you see a team player suddenly not there on that poster anymore, for whatever reason it is.
Yep.
So then he might be the Judas, or he might be really missed by the fans because he's not there anymore. Whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with bands and band situations. You know,
Of course.
fans have their favorites, which is understandable. But you know, there's a saying, nothing lasts forever, although we are forever, but nothing lasts forever like we want to.
Nothing is made to last forever. That's life.
Sure.
So around that album, Death Cult Armageddon, which is also a brilliant album.
Thank you.
I really love it. You know, obviously it came after the last one, which was my favorite, so I got into this one as well. And I guess that was when it exploded for you guys. With
it had kind of like a second boom. I always, look at Enthroned, Darkness Triumphant as the first real boom of the band. Death Cult, for me personally, biased as I am, I consider that the second one. It was a lot went into that album. We made demos on each song, for instance, and even more analytical and critical as you become as a person and as a songwriter. And
I have to cut you off.
Of course, cut me.
Chop! I remember. I think this might have been the first time I went to your house. Actually, I remember you were cleaning out some closets or something or another, and I remember seeing some CDs in a box, and I saw a CD that just said Death Cult Armageddon riffs.
Okay.
I remember just looking at that CD and should I just put it in the pocket or should I ask him about it? And I know how strong an album that is. It would be really interesting to listen to that tape or that CD.
Yeah, we a couple of years ago we actually were listening back to the demo songs of the album, and it's of course a lot more raw than you can think. But it's extremely raw, Yeah. And that in itself could be something that I think the fans would appreciate at some point later on, as a bonus thing.
Are you considering that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it shows the band in the writing position or pole position, as you.
It's been more and more common now. Actually, bands are kind of including fans into the writing process, the recording process. It's been way more. The social media part of the music industry has really opened wide. I think it's cool, but at the same time, it takes away a bit of that mystery and mystique.
Sure. Whatever that's left of the mystique.
Yeah, that's true.
Because everything is so open these days, and I think for a band like ours, that mystique got slaughtered pretty much with the third album. Once we signed to a bigger label, back in the day, it was like, Dissection is on that record label, Hypocrisy is on that record label. So that's got to work for us as well. Yeah. But for the real diehard underground people where we come from ourselves, I understand that, because it's back to the soccer player that's not on the poster anymore.
Yeah.
He's Judas. You have a personal relationship. Even if you don't know the person, you have a personal relationship with it. And you feel that something is taken away from you and given to a lot of other people. The
fan kind of owns you in his way.
At the end of the day, those are the ones that put the bread on the table. And we like you and any other band, we would not be anywhere without them. But if we start making art on their demand or their expectation, that's when things are going to go foul and wrong. Because then you lose your own, you give your identity to someone else to decide for you, and that's never going to work.
No. either way, you put yourself on the plate. You do as an artist and as like a public person.
Yeah.
You're out there.
Yeah.
Sorry to say.
True.
But how was it with the peak of this period in 2003 and 4?
That
you
was
were
like
on Billboard and
we were all over the place, and we did the Ozfest tour, which was a huge thing,
Yeah.
Economically, it was still a disaster, but still, imagine sharing the main stage on Ozfest with, Black Label Society, Slayer, Judas Priest, and Black Sabbath. It's like you don't really care about if you come home to pay the bills. You just don't care,
Mhm.
To see many of your favorite bands play after you on the same stage for, I think it was 33 shows or something like that. It's like, and there's a reason why you don't get tired of watching those bands night after night after night, because it's like, it's the reason why you were there in the first place.
Yep.
Sharing the stage with them. So that's something really special that I will treasure for the rest of my life.
Understandable. For sure. But I remember from previous conversations that you told me that after this Ozfest run, there were some decisions made that made perhaps everything slow down a bit.
Yeah, I think we, there was a lot of touring involved, and
Offers are coming in.
Yeah, still a lot of. Everybody has personal turmoil stuff going on, and when you've been on tour for 2 months straight, because we also did headline shows between the Ozfest shows to salvage some of the economical aspect of it.
Yeah.
And once you come home from such a long and hard tour, the last thing you think of is like the next tour or whatever that may be. Although the offers kept coming in, and offers for festivals in 2005 and all, that's how it goes. But in hindsight, I guess it was meant to be like this in a way.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's like it's hard to say that we should have done it differently, because we're here now, we're talking about it, and
we can't change it.
We can't change it.
No.
And it's that's why the coincidence part is very fragile in my mind. I don't put too much attention to coincidences.
No.
That word.
It's just a part of the history of the band, and we
Yeah.
needed to touch upon it.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
But,
And that was. I would agree that in many ways it was a peak of the band, and also after this in 2005, 2006, 2007, that's when the internet started to kick in more and more.
Yeah.
The downloading started to really show its face.
Yes.
So there's a lot of stuff happening in a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For all bands, for all artists.
Yes.
Whatever level you're at. So.
And I'm on the part of this. I pulled the shortest straw on this because I started releasing my music officially and through labels after the internet boom. So I will never be the guy with the pool in Beverly Hills or the crashed Ferraris.
Sure, but you the thing is with you and your band, you still have in many ways have done the same trenches that the old bands have done, even the 60s and the 70s bands, because you cannot get anywhere unless you do things yourself. You have to promote yourself.
Yeah.
Of course, you can always have assistance and help from people outside, but at the end of the day, you're the shot caller.
That's true.
So nothing of this would happen if you didn't go for it.
That's true.
And for me, and the way I guess I can call and talk for everybody else in the band too, is like that's something we all have in common. You know, it's like we know that if we want to do something, we kind of have to manifest it ourselves. We have to go that extra mile, you know, to make it happen.
Yeah.
Even if you have tons of help from and assistance from others, you have to take that last plank. You have to walk that plank. You know.
You have to put yourself out there, basically. I'm in the.
So does that mean that we're whores? We're hookers, right?
We are kind of dirty.
Well, I know that, but I mean, are we dirty hookers or are we escorts?
No, we're high class prostitutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean,
nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
No judgment. No judgment.
I'm in a lucky position because I have put myself. Mork is a one-man band. I basically is the soul.
Yeah, you're the shot caller.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So that's lucky for me. I'm not part of a collective in that way.
But to play live, you have to depend on
that's true.
People around you.
That's true.
That agree to your vision.
True, but there's no argument before we enter the stage.
No, because
it's set.
Plus, I can only imagine the arguments you have with yourself.
I wouldn't go into that here. That's a whole other episode or 10. And I'm in a lucky position. My label, Peaceful Records, they are giving me such a good pat on the back, and they're just letting me be who I am, which is a good thing. So,
and that's the definition of someone that understands your vision. It's the same with our label. We haven't always agreed on stuff, but we always had the freedom to do artistically, musically, whatever we want. You know.
Yeah.
I remember when we released In Sorte Diaboli, that came after Death Cult in 2007.
Yes.
It has our depiction of the Baphomet, you know. And starting the tour in the States with tits, you can just imagine how this is going to go down, right? So we had the trailer covered trailer and bus covered in album artwork, and especially the trailer with equipment. And once we got off the plane to start the tour, it's like, okay, there's like black tape on.
It's like a sensor.
Over the tits. Yeah, of course. It's like, really? We're like landing in the land of the free, home of the brave. And the first thing we see coming off the plane is like fucking the so-called tits of the Baphomet is covered.
Not that brave and not that free.
My thoughts exactly. But you know, it was humoristic, and I think even before the first show, that was ripped off by some fan, obviously.
Yeah.
So, you know, but that just shows that as an artist, you have freedom. And you should have freedom to say and do whatever you want. Yeah. You know, it's like if we do something that someone else doesn't approve of, that's not our problem, because I can also have the choice to say that, oh, I don't like that, so you have to change that. No, that's my problem then.
That's
you
true.
know, that's
individual.
Yeah. So hopefully, those who ripped those black parts off, then there were something in these
The
days.
tits were exposed.
Yep, all out there.
It's just a traveling titty show. Now that's good. You segued into In Sorte Diaboli, which I also remember quite vividly. I remember getting the digipack, which had the mirror thing with
right. That was
lyrics.
that was the special edition of the special edition. I think it was. So
really,
yeah.
So I'm special.
That's also when I think because of the downloads, the labels started to. Well, they had to think differently, so they put. That's when all the different releases started happening, I think.
But were there any controversies around that mirror thing? I remember hearing something about that, but that just may be some street talk.
I have no idea.
No, okay, then it's probably nothing.
The idea we had was to just like
make it complicated.
Because this was plus it was also kind of like a concept album about this character that changes from one side to the other.
Yes.
So it's like to have a mirror to be able to read the lyrics backwards. That's that was the plan, to just have a gimmick like that.
It worked.
Well, yeah, for some in our heads, I guess it worked.
I think it's a really cool thing. It's a cool gimmick.
It's a special edition of a special edition, so it's not. It wasn't printed in many copies, but it was a gimmick to be able to sell more of the album.
I remember it. It's like what is it? 10 years back, 12, 13 years back.
2007.
Yeah, I still remember it.
Yeah.
So it made a mark.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And after this, you did the Abrahadabra album.
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah, and then we come to the present day, Union.
Yeah.
And Dimmu is still here. It's as good as ever. You are still touring. You're headlining.
Yeah, there was a gap of 8 years between Abrahadabra and the new album.
That's true. That's true.
Although we didn't spend 8 years writing the new album.
No.
But there was several reasons why things were taking longer than expected. And if I go into all of them, they're all going to sound like excuses, I suppose. So let's not do that. But still, it's...
But this is an open platform. You can say whatever you want.
It's
just a conversation.
Yeah. No, I think, we toured not as much for Abrahadabra as we did in the previous times. But I think the older you get, the more time you need to recuperate and maybe also find that spark when you've been together for so many years, since 93. It's not only about meeting up every week to just, let's exchange ideas, blah, blah, blah. It's like... So I think we just needed some space, and then one thing leads to the other. There was like a lot of private matters happening. Several of us got parents again.
Yeah.
Some of us got parents for the first time. There's so many factors,
Life.
But that doesn't mean that we were not working on ideas. I remember even from 2012, we have parts of songs, or major parts of songs, that ended up on the Aeonian album.
Yeah.
And you would think that from 2012 to 2018, when it was released, that most of that stuff wouldn't survive, because after so many years, you would go back and, it's too old, let's skip that shit, let's move on to...
It's surprisingly how fresh ideas can sound if you just let them stay for a while.
Yes, and give them a new touch-up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And from a new perspective. And it's like that's how it kind of sound like new. If you take Stormblast, the original album, Stormblast, the re-recording, which we did in 2005, 10 years, 11 years after, plus, minus. To me, biased as I am again, Stormblast still stands the test of time, at least for those 10 years. Any idea that you feel like, this is something that, I don't want to throw it away, or we don't want to throw it away, but it doesn't fit right here.
No, but there's something
now.
there.
There's something there. So when we start working on new albums, we have like tons and tons of old ideas, and I think it would be doing us we need to be able to go back and listen back to older ideas, because it could be 10 seconds of a 30 seconds idea, whatever, that you can fit in a gap here and there. So that's the difference between how we are a band now than we were in the beginning, because then it was like riff, like 4x4x4 all the time. Now later years, it's more like, nah, what if we have a little bit of that, and that can trigger another idea again that becomes even better. So it's way more of a puzzle these days than it was back then, but it's still the same feeling, and we all feel the same ownership to what we do, and that has never changed. That has just gotten stronger over the years, and something I'm really, really proud of. And I can speak for the other guys as well. We all feel that same pride working on songs. It's just basically it's exact same way that we started the band. It's back to a group of people in the same room exchanging ideas and disagreeing on ideas as well, of course. So, but that's what you do. You give and take in any relation to other people, more than one.
I kind of admire that, actually, because.
But you still have to do it in a live situation, because even if you in Mork you do all the music and you have the vision, you have to have someone that you can share that with.
Yeah, and
when you're gonna play live.
It's a collective choice. The set lists,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it would be wrong if you would decide all the songs there as well.
Yeah, I would.
Then you would have people rotating in that live lineup the whole time.
Yep.
So yeah.
No, I'm not a dictator in that way. But
sometimes leadership is something that from the outside can be looked at as you're a fucking prick or whatever. Egotistic, whatever. But somebody has to have or use that to drive things forward.
The drive
in
itself.
Yeah, the four-wheel drive, 4x4.
4x4? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ionian was released, and I remember I actually spoke with you on the phone, because this is something completely different though, but I was visiting my mother in the hospital, actually, because she had a cerebral hemorrhage around that time, and I remember talking to you on the parking lot at the hospital.
That's true, yeah.
Where you told me that you were heading into pre-productions for the tour. So I just want to round up the episode by you telling a little bit about the last couple of years, and what has been the effect of the COVID bullshit that we are a part of, and future plans of Dimmu Borgir.
Yeah. I mean, once we finally got the album released in 2018, granted, it got delayed 1 year, actually. It was done, mastered in 2017, and we had a preliminary release date in 2017.
Oh.
But it got delayed even further, so that, of course, added to the mystery of why it took 8 years for the album to come out.
Oh.
But the months leading up to the release date and planning the tour and the shows and all that stuff.
Just cut you off quickly.
Yeah.
The live DVD and the orchestral spectrum thing, was that kind of dropped then because of the delay?
Another one, because that in itself also got delayed.
Yep.
And that's the live show we did in 2011.
Yep.
And it was pretty much mixed and mastered, finished in, I think, 2015, 2016. Because what came out of the orchestra show in Oslo, to take that first, that was more, that was the broadcast that came on the NRK broadcast. That was, of course, shoved out on the YouTube right away. And that's the broadcast mix.
It was actually broadcasted on. It was aired on Norwegian NRK TV at nighttime.
Yes,
several nights.
Yes, several times. But that was the broadcast NRK mix.
Yeah. Yes.
And even if that was a good, decent mix on the go for being such a big project, like, I mean, we're talking 100 people on stage.
Yeah.
And 50 people behind the scenes, plus, So for that to work out that well in itself is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
But of course, we could not release something officially with that type of mix because it's not the mix of the band that we can stand behind. So
I just need to put in just a credit for you. Dimmu Borgir did the same thing at Wacken. With basically, it was like, I don't know if it was 100-piece thing.
it was the same thing.
Yeah,
A different
but-
orchestra, different conductor.
Yeah, but this was like with only a line check.
Line check. It was 40 minutes line check.
Yeah,
100 people
that's just
at the festival. What can go wrong?
impressive.
What can possibly go wrong?
It's just impressive. Please continue.
But just to pick up on what you said there, is like that shows how we as a band works. We always never ask people or anybody for permission to do stuff. We just do it, and that's playing at Wacken in front of 90,000 people, whatever, main stage with 40 minutes changeover, line check with 100 people, an orchestra.
It's completely.
Granted, we rehearsed with the orchestra for 2 or 3 days, but still, that's like throwing yourself into the abyss.
It's completely
Literally.
completely insane.
Yeah, it is, but that shows how we are as how we are mentally, and it goes pretty well with how this band has operated since the beginning. When we started writing songs together in '93, without even having a particular vision, and I think that's the essence of the band, that we're never afraid to do something, although you don't really feel like comfortable with it, because when you walk on stage in front of 90,000 people with just a line check, and you're like, is everything working? And you hear in the background, no, that's not working right now, blah, blah, but we have to go on. Yeah. So you go on, and
It after what I have understood and seen, I think it worked out quite well, actually. Perhaps there was like one violin missing. I don't know.
And I also have to keep in mind that this was also broadcasted.
It was live, right?
Yeah, parts of this was broadcasted on German television. So imagine to make a quick mix, quick broadcast mix out of a festival situation with 100 people on stage. You can just imagine that
I hope
it's a hit or miss.
I hope you paid your sound man well.
We had 2 sound men,
Yeah.
like we had in Oslo as well, and not to mention how many in the crew. And I mean, if it wasn't for all of the people wanting to do it, that had their own ownership to it, it wouldn't have worked. Because if it would be something or someone that you would just hire in to do a job, like it would be another paycheck, that wouldn't work in those type of situations, and it rarely works in other situations anyway. So you have to kind of, it's a hit or miss. But luckily, I think both of the shows before the real mixing started to take place was a hit. We had something that we could really work with, and it's live. The band and the orchestra is live. I think there's either in the Oslo show or on the Wacken show, there's one note played wrong on either its keys or lead or whatever it is, but that's replaced from the other show.
Oh, okay.
That's the only touch up.
Okay.
Only roundup. Apart from that, it's all live, and it's
it's impressive. It's a total chaos just looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, thinking back at it, it's like, holy shit, what were we thinking?
You were thinking right.
Apparently.
You were.
So, but it worked out, and once we finally got to release it on the DVD, to that we could stand behind the actual mix, because let's face it, it's live, and it's going to be, in parts, it's going to be sloppy, and the sound is like, imagine the whole fucking signal chain in that operation, it's
Yep.
it's the jungle out there.
But at least you released a live album. It's not a new studio effort with audience sound.
No, that's the thing, and it took us quite I think it was like a week, 10 days, I think, to mix it all, because there was 2 shows and same set list, but still two different places, two different
Change it completely.
atmospheres, and you know what? There's parts of the Oslo show which I really like because it's like it's so well prepared. And that goes back into the sound, but the Wacken show is more like, as we started this thing talking about punk and stuff. Yeah. That is real punk, because you go on the stage and you basically just plug in and check that everything is working, and you go ahead and do it. Yep. So what's more punk than that, you know?
I love it. I love it. But please, we have been really good today. We are kind of skipping the whole pandemic really nicely here, but I need to bring it in because it's the time we live in.
Yeah.
So I basically want to know how it has affected you and the band and future plans.
Well, seeing it from a positive side, we don't have a full tour lined up. I know there's so many other bands having things canceled or postponed. Hopefully, most of this is going to be postponed at least just 1 year at the max, so we can start all over again in 2021. That would be, of course, what we all hope for.
Yeah. But from before, you basically had downtime now.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. No one sees what artists do behind the scenes anyway.
True.
So I think a lot of bands are spending the time just the way they would do normally, maybe speeding up a little bit to take advantage of this situation, instead of sitting down being like, complaining about the situation. I think most artists by nature, by default, are focused enough to think that, what can we do out of this situation? Because there's nothing certain in this business that we are part of. You know,
first of all, when this thing hit and I started to realize that the shows and festivals were going to be canceled or postponed, I actually began to see this as so it's twisted to say it like this, but I saw it as a gift, because I have been creative all the way through these weeks. You know, I am finishing the new Mork album. We are mixing that up at Freddy's house. You know, Freddy, and we have begun shooting a music video for it. I am starting to do this podcast thing, which I have no clue about, but I'm just
see that's the thing. You see the opportunities in a very difficult and challenging time, and I think that's part of being creative, because you're being forced to use your creativity in a different way, you know, and instead of just we all pick up the guitar or the keyboard or the drums or whatever, but that's what we do anyway.
Yes.
So when things or situations like this happens, we just have to, you know, by the horns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally.
We are the first ones to actually occupy our time with things to do, because we are creative and we are just practicing our craft.
Yeah.
So I urge everyone out there who is a painter or artist or songwriter or whatever, just maintain your craft and do what you are made to do, you know, because without any tours or shows or anything you have to do, you have so much time to just make perfection out of your art. So that's the way I kind of see this epidemic as a gift. It's not a gift in a global sense.
It's hard when you use that word. I totally agree with you, but it's also very hard to think of it as a gift.
Yes,
because it's kind of like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Although everybody's plans are being turned around, and it's like, oh, what do we do? I mean, economically, we don't even have to go into that bullshit.
No,
but
or the deaths, you know.
that too, yeah. So, I mean, we just have to do what we can do to focus on what we would do anyway.
Yes.
Besides playing shows and planning for touring. I mean, after all, at the end of the day, we are artists and musicians, and that comes naturally for us, I think.
Yeah.
For most of us, anyway.
Yeah.
And let's just do that gift. Use that gift to fight this fucked up situation.
Yeah. We just have to, let it slide by, and hopefully it will be quick and brief.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But can you please just give us something about, is there any future plans after the pandemic is gone?
Well, we have, you know what, the last year or ever since we were done with the previous album, if we wanted to extend that writing session a little bit longer, we could have basically written a double album. But I don't think that's what's best for this band, at least not at the moment. So,
I don't think it's the best for any band, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you to most extent there. But we have so much material, and as we talked about earlier, there's a good idea, even if it doesn't fit at the time, might have time. There might be room for it later.
Oh, absolutely.
So taking that into consideration, plus all the new stuff, that the new ideas that are floating around already for quite a while now, it's just a matter of putting those ideas together into songs. Because with Dimmu, there's never been a shortage of material.
No.
There's always been more than enough to choose from.
Yeah.
So the challenge has always been to try and put these pieces together like a puzzle. If you want a bigger, longer song, you need more pieces, and
we all have archives.
Yes.
I have vaults full of riffs.
Yep.
So that's some days, I'm sitting with the guitar and just trying to come up with the next killer thing, and I'm not coming up with anything, and then I remember my phone or my archive or whatever. I have some old riffs and I listen back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Plus,
if you then like, I don't like the whole idea of that, but if I take that, combine it with parts of the new stuff I just had recorded, it's like, maybe in the same key, it might be in the perfect key to the next idea, whatever, so it's...
I kind of struggle with that sometimes, taking a part out of a thing and
because
putting it somewhere
you
else.
feel like you're finished with it.
Yes,
so
that's my plague.
Yes, yes, mine too. But I'm trying every time I come up with an idea. It's like I'm not satisfied with the full idea here. It's what if I just leave it there for a while? 3 days later, I'll look back into the archives, pull something out. It's like, I don't like all of that, but what if I put this together with this? Granted, it might be a different tuning or whatever, but it's like, and then maybe that together won't work, but that could trigger something else while you sit with the guitar. So it's songwriting. The songwriting process is 24/7. It's not when you sit with the guitar or the instrument or with the pen and the paper. The songwriting just keeps on churning.
It's grinding.
It's grinding to the whole, like to the hilt. Yeah.
Sven, Silenoz, Atle, Kopperud.
Thomas.
Yes.
Thomas. Let's finish this the way we started it.
Yeah, with a Fernet Branca.
Yeah, your favorite. And my favorite, which is a shot.
Shot this time. Skål.
Get it down there.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you, and you know that.
Likewise.
Just some final words for the listeners.
Well, I'm really happy that you have found a new little outlet here, because I think that's gonna be a future thing, if we can look upon things as futuristic. So I'll be happy to be back one day and
awesome.
talk some more bullshit.
Yeah. We need to bullshit some more.
For sure.
All right, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.